Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dustin Perry from Ghost Hunters and Ghost Hunters International, and you are tuned into the Paranormally Zone.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen. It does happen.
A ghostly apparition in the dark of night.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Hey there, ponderers of the paranormal. You are in the Paranormally Zone, your place for all things paranormal, unexplained, odd, and mysterious, and of course, all of the good times in between. My name is Patrick Koffenberg. I am responsible for this hootenanny of a podcast. Does that work? Hootenanny? And I am joined, as always, by my co-host with the ghosts, the grammatically stubborn Mike Carbno. Grammatically stubborn. And by grammatically stubborn, I mean I wish you could have heard what Mike and I were talking about before we started recording tonight. There's a certain word that Mike insists should be allowed in the English language.
Hey, it works in my world.
I guess that's all that matters. I suppose.
My world is a topsy-turvy something or other.
See, I told you, grammatically stubborn. He can't even think of how to describe his own world. But no, the word that you were looking
the
for.
Listeners.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so if you're describing something that you have in your hand after walking out of
you're not going to like
store,
it. You're not going to like putting this out there. You're not going to like putting this out there, Mike.
Hey, if everybody tells me I'm wrong, then everybody tells me I'm wrong, and okay. Hey, I probably know I'm wrong already. Yeah, but
yeah, because I told you.
Is it okay to be wrong in this manner? I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have your bags of whatever you bought at the store, or that you have bought at the store. I like to say boughten. I have boughten this. I have boughten a car before. I have bought many figurines and Funko Pops for my podcast desk. I have bought this house and the TVs I have bought that I watch in it. I have bought the bed that I sleep in. I have bought the food in my fridge that I have eaten,
Lord,
and have still yet to eat.
Lord, make him stop.
I have bought all of these things.
Lord, please. I cannot.
I have bought the underwear that I wear under my pants that I have bought.
Lord, strike me down. I cannot handle this anymore.
Patrick's turning different colors.
No, Mike.
Patrick, I think you should have bought different lighting. Your coloring isn't good.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. No, Mike, more power to you, man. God bless you. I love you, man. I am never going to accept that word.
That's okay.
Because it isn't a word. So
yes, I agree.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop using it.
No, you're going to use it more often now. I know you are. So
yes. And it's just like when I have taken a walk.
Oh God! Damn it.
I have taken a piece of candy out of the candy bowl in my house that I have bought.
You've made your point. You've made your point. Hopefully we still have listeners at this moment. Yeah. But
well, it'd be great. Even if there's just one listener out there that says, well, I use the same word. Hey, let me know. Okay. And I shall give you a long distance hug, and maybe I'll send you something. I don't know. Something that I have bought.
I was just going to say that.
I have
yep,
sitting on my podcast desk.
Not something that you had taken, something that you had bought. Okay.
No. I'd rather have bought something than just taken it.
Oh my gosh, I am like getting the heebie-jeebies just hearing that over and over. I am I'm not enjoying it, but hey, I shall persevere because this is the Paranomaly Zone. I almost called ourselves. I almost called ourselves our old name. Boy, that was like I haven't done that for months. That was weird. That kind of slipped out of me there. That was unique.
How many names have we gone through now? Has it been 3?
Three official names. Yes.
Yeah.
So
For some reason, I'm drawing a blank what the first one was.
Nonsensicast Radio.
Nonsensicast, yes.
Absolutely. So
it's about time for a throwback to a Nonsensicast.
Yeah, sure, maybe. Yeah, you betcha. Well, I don't have it on me right now, but we just recently had the pleasure of speaking with Ron Moorhead
Yes.
for the third time, one time for each podcast name. And I wanted to pull up the original plug that he put in for Nonsensicast Radio because it's like
That would be awesome.
And Mike, remind me to pull that up before we wrap up tonight, okay?
Sure.
So I will forget. So if you can please try to remember, that'd be pretty cool. So hey, it's good to see you though, my friend. It's been a Sasquatch-filled month of podcast content.
It has.
Thank you everyone for tuning in to our, like I said, our aforementioned chat with the awesome Ron Moorhead, and hopefully you have all listened to and enjoyed our this past Thursday night chat with the She Squatchers.
That was awesome. I enjoyed that immensely.
Very, very cool. They are going to return, as I mentioned at the end of the podcast. It ended abruptly. And
yes.
So I tried to make that as smooth of a transition as possible, but they have agreed to return to the show because, hey, quite frankly, Mike, right when the podcast shut down, I had just asked them the greatest question that has ever been asked in the history of mankind, and they were about ready to blow us away, and everything shut off. So,
and I didn't get a chance to ask my question.
Oh, of
the
course.
same question that I asked Ron Moorhead that he had a great answer for.
Yeah, right. Good old Harry and Henderson's. So, yeah,
yes, he liked it, especially the ending.
Oh, he did. Yes, the ending of Harry and Henderson's. That is so.
The whole movie was great.
It was. It's entertaining. How can you go wrong with John Lithgow? So
you can't. You just can't.
R.I.P. to Kevin Peter Hall. And
right.
So I have fond memories of Harry and the Henderson, no doubt. But we're not talking about Harry and the Henderson tonight, Mike. We're talking about, we have two pretty cool topics.
Yes, we do.
And I am not sure. We briefly talked about this before we started recording. I was like, have we spoken about this? Have we discussed this one particular incident when we were the Alternate Route podcast?
I think briefly.
I think briefly we did, but we definitely didn't do. It wasn't like the main focus of an episode. I don't believe.
Right. I don't know. I don't believe so.
But we're talking about tonight the 1897 Aurora UFO incident / Texas Spaceman. Crazy stuff going on there. It's a
mystery.
It's a mystery. Over 120 years later, it's still a mystery, man. And that's what makes it fascinating because it has not been debunked. There's a reason it has not been debunked. So I'm looking forward to diving into that. And then for one last take, Mike, what are we talking about? And he's staring at me blankly.
Easter Island. We are going to discuss a little bit and do a one last take on Easter Island.
Yep, I'm looking forward to that one. We're usually rip roaring and ready to go when it comes to one last take, and we're fired up and with
because I've had more beer.
You're right, and we're ready to
before the ending
fire away with our opinions, our hot takes, and I'm looking forward to that, Mike. Easter Island has always been absolutely fascinating.
Very fascinating. There's a lot of different theories. There's a lot of fascinating things about how things were done, what happened, and why the island has been abandoned from the tribe that was living there.
Pretty crazy, but very worthwhile of a Paranormally Zone one last take for sure. Obviously, I mean, that's what every mystery in the world is aiming for: is to be discussed on the Paranormally Zone, right? That's the reason God, whatever higher power you want to call it, put those mysteries out in front of us just so we could break them all down, decimate them, or disseminate, I should say, and discuss and all that.
You used the word the wrong way.
I did. I loved it too. So it felt good.
Then I can use the word button.
Oh, come on.
Anyway,
and also I did not use a word wrong. I used the wrong word. So there you go.
Same thing.
Hey there, gotcha. Bada bing, bada boom.
No, but yeah, it'll be interesting. It's got great subject matter.
Um,
And when we're done talking about it, it will continue to be a mystery. We will shed no light on it whatsoever.
Very good. Thank you for pointing
you
that
know?
out. Thank you for pointing that out. If you are new to the Paranormally Zone, you will quickly come to the realization that neither Mike or myself are experts by any stretch of the imagination. We're fascinated by all things unknown, unexplained, odd, and paranormal, and we love talking about it and giving our 2 cents. And so,
Yeah. We come up with a topic at the last minute, and for half an hour we research it, and we just go nuts on the.
That's absolutely right.
On the
Absolutely right. And you know what? It seems to be working. We've struck a chord with our listeners, and so we can't thank them enough for appreciating our gibberish. Because
and when we have an episode that really doesn't go well, it's because right when we go to record time, we still have no idea what we're going to talk about.
and that's a little behind the scenes here, but that a lot of times that's very true. We take topics that we are passionate about, we have a general knowledge of at the very least, and we're like, oh, Mike, we can banter back and forth about this. We enjoy the topic. We're, like I said, we're passionate about it. We can make a good discussion for about 45 minutes to an hour. Sometimes, most of the times it works, but those other ones, I guess I leave it up to listeners for them to decide. So,
right.
Tonight, maybe one of those, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
Well, I'll ask you right off the bat, Mike, how long have you been familiar with the 1897 Texas Spaceman story, the Aurora UFO incidents? I mean, is that something that has always been on the top of your alien feelers, so to speak?
I would say, oh boy, late 70s, early 80s, I would say.
Okay. Now, was that... Well, how long have you, and be brief, obviously, Mike, how long have aliens / UFOs been of an utmost interest to you?
Oh, geez.
As our listeners know, and new listeners will come to realize very quickly, Mike has lived a paranormal life. That's no joke. I say that all the time because it's true. And
because I am a ghost myself.
Oh, you are? Well, that explains it.
Pasty white, at least.
I was going to say that explains why I can basically see through you at times.
Mm-hmm.
But you've been a believer, a hardcore believer in the spiritual realm / ghosts, whatever you want to call them. But you've also been utterly fascinated by aliens and UFOs for as long as I've known you.
Yep.
What was it about it? Is it something that just struck you?
Well, no, it's all things that I originally, most of it I've gotten from my father, and other than that, my father's side of the family. It's just been in the family for generations. And as far as UFOs and aliens, I remember, this was still in the 60s, late 60s. And I don't remember, I can't tell right offhand when this book first came out, but I do remember my father having the book Chariots of the Gods, Eric von Däniken,
right?
In the 60s. And, that's when I was introduced to it. And that was like the spark that got me going.
Yep.
Very young child, but just, that spark put into me, my mind about it from that. And then as I grew older, learning more on my own and knowing what my father believed in and was passionate about, or had interest in, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
That just kept me going. And then it all exploded at one point, and everything was all over the place.
And you were probably among millions who were turned onto it by Chariots of the Gods.
Oh yeah,
the book.
Absolutely. And I think actually, I have found that book in my dad's belongings that
no kidding
have been stored in my basement since he passed away. And that original book that got me going. And
that's cool.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's something that's I've always been fascinated with myself. I can't put a particular date and time on or a particular moment. You know, it might have been very well, Mike, when I first started becoming obsessed with the television show, The X-Files. You know,
Sure.
That could have been, that literally could have been it.
Yeah.
And back in those days, late 90s, well, mid to late 90s, when you started getting all those really interesting television programs hosted by Jonathan Frakes, you know, talking about the alien autopsy video and all that stuff. And it's like, it was must-see television for me. And I mean, if you believe that or not, and that's a whole nother topic altogether, that might have set me off down the kind of obsession with, you know, is there or isn't there?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm sorry, Mike. I'm going to retract that. I think it was the Fire in the Sky movie about the Travis Walton abduction. That's what set me off. That's right. Because that was that was early 90s, mid 90s when I don't remember exactly when, but yeah. How can you not be interested after watching that?
Yeah. When I what pushed me along with the alien thing too is the movie with Betty and Barney Hill.
Oh, there you go. With James Earl Jones. Yeah.
James Earl Jones and Estelle
Parsons. Thank you for remembering it.
Awesome movie. And of course, James Earl Jones is awesome as he is in everything.
A belated happy birthday. A belated happy birthday to the voice of Darth Vader himself, James Earl Jones. I think he turned a very young 92 last weeks ago, 91 or 92, but many more to come for Mr. James Earl Jones. Mike,
every time I watch Field of Dreams, I tear up.
Of course you do. Well, you're just, you know, you're always eating onions for some reason when you're.
I love it when Kevin Costner reminds him that you're a pacifist, and James Earl Jones gets pissed. Like, love that movie though.
Say, Mike, I'd like to start off our discussion of this incident. Dare I say infamous incident by reading the actual newspaper article that was published on April 17th, 1897. So, you know, using my math, that's going on 125 years, correct?
Long time ago.
That's
my math. A long time ago.
The title of the article is A Windmill Demolishes It. Aurora, Wise County, Texas, April 17th. The article goes as such. About 6 o'clock this morning, it's a short little passage, so no worries. About 6 o'clock this morning, the early risers of Aurora were astonished at the sudden appearance of the airship, which has been sailing through the country. It was traveling due north and much nearer the earth than ever before. Evidently, some of the machinery was out of order, for it was making a speed of only 10 or 12 miles an hour and gradually settling toward the earth. Now, I want to pause for a second. A couple things I want to point out there. Again, this was written immediately after this supposed event.
Mm-hmm.
How did this reporter or whoever submitted the report, his name was S.E. Hayden, I believe. Let me see if I wrote it down right. S.E. Hayden, he's a cotton farmer. He submitted this report. Had there been prior reports across the country, Mike, of UFO sightings? Is that why he said the appearance of the airship, which has been sailing through the country?
You know, I was going to say when you were reading that I believe it was. There was
so
a period of time that things were sighted. It was like wasn't it described as like a Zeppelin type ship? And the drawings of it that you see, I believe I've seen drawings that people have made of it that kind of looks like a Zeppelin with a carriage type area underneath it.
Okay.
But I mean, that could have been just like an interpretation of what they were seeing.
Of course.
And it was more technical than that. And that just, thought it looked like a Zeppelin.
The description that I hear and have read most often about this particular space was that it was cigar shaped.
Right.
And that's something that we hear a lot about lot of.
Yeah, there's still sightings like that today.
And as the article goes on, it says it was traveling due north, as I said, much closer to the earth than before, and making a speed of 10 to 12 miles an hour. Now, that's an interesting fact to me. That sticks out because that's something that is would be fresh in the memory of someone who had witnessed it. That's how
Right.
I interpreted it.
Exactly.
I guess estimating a speed of 10 to 12. Now let's put this in our mind's eye right now. Let's think of this unidentified, brightly lit object, perhaps cigar shaped, perhaps saucer shaped, that is hovering low to the ground, relatively low to the ground, going 10 to 12 miles an hour. If that actually happened and witnesses were there, they had a chance to get a terrific view of
Right.
this, whatever you want to call it. 10 to 12 miles an hour is not that fast, Mike.
Did they use that term miles per hour back then?
That's what it says right here.
Hmm.
10 or 12 miles
the clip,
and
yeah.
it says 10 or 12 miles an hour. Doesn't say miles.
Okay, because
per
I was
hour.
thinking it was traveling the speed of a slightly lame horse,
Well, okay, I get what you're saying there.
which
I
would have
get
been a
what
lot less than 10 to 12 miles an hour, I'm sure.
The article goes on. It says it sailed directly over the public square, and when it reached the north part of town, it collided with the tower of Judge Proctor's windmill
Right.
and went to pieces with a terrific explosion, scattering debris over several acres of ground, wrecking the windmill and water tank and destroying the judge's flower garden. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Again, this was the report back in the day, April 17th, 1897.
Mm-hmm.
The pilot of the ship is supposed to have been the only one on board. And while his remains are badly disfigured, enough of the original has been picked up to show that he was not an inhabitant of this world.
Right. And they gave it a Christian burial in their own cemetery.
They did. Mr. T.J. Weems, the United States Signal Service officer at this place and an authority on astronomy, gives it as his opinion that this was a native of the planet Mars.
Mars, yes.
It was always about
And when
Mars, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's what they would have been more familiarized with. But when was War of the Worlds actually written?
Oh, good Lord. That was aired in the 1920s, I thought it was.
Well,
wasn't
that
it?
was the radio production of it.
Oh, when it was written. Okay.
Right. The book itself. Yeah.
That I don't know, man. That I don't know.
Because if that would have been written around that same time, that could have been like the beginning of a hysteria of people.
Oh my God,
seeing
yes.
things. But I can't say for sure because I do not know what year that book was written. But
I don't either. Let's look it up. Let's answer that before the episode is over with.
sure. Yeah.
So you're going to remind me of two things, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
War of the Worlds. I'm writing it down. Wow. War of the Worlds. Date. And Ron
Kevin
Moorhead.
Ron Moorhead.
Nonsensicast.
Yeah.
Then the short little article ends as such. Well, there's 3 brief paragraphs yet. This is more interesting stuff, Mike. Papers found on this person or his person, evidently the record of his travels, are written in some unknown hieroglyphics and cannot be deciphered. The ship was too badly wrecked to form any conclusion as to its construction or motive power. It was built of an unknown metal resembling somewhat a mixture of aluminum and silver, and it must have weighed several tons. The town is full of people today who are viewing the wreck and gathering specimens of the strange metal from the debris. The pilot's funeral would take place at noon tomorrow.
Yeah. And some of that wreckage was actually buried with the alien, and there was a lot of it that was put down the well that was on the judge's property that the windmill was pumping water from.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that is part of the mystery today, because some people claim, well, the property owners claim to have been physically affected by the water they're pumping from said well.
Right. That was actually the property was.
Don't say it. My God, he almost said it. He almost
about did.
said it, and
The property was purchased by another man. I can't remember what his name was. I had it written down, but he actually had taken the material out of the well and he was going to use it as a water source.
Yep.
And when he was using it as a water source, he had contracted just a extreme case of arthritis.
That's right.
And he blamed it on the water that was tainted by material in the well that he'd taken out.
Now, I want to go back to the article briefly, Mike, where it talks about the papers allegedly found on this being.
Right.
Now, that's the part that kind of takes me out of it a little bit.
Okay.
If this is of alien technology, and they are allegedly however many, I don't know, thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of years ahead of us, maybe perhaps in technology. What are they doing with paper and writing hieroglyphics on paper? Do you have thoughts about that, Mike? Were they meant to be left to us as messages to us, since that's what we were using at that time? Paper, I mean, we still do, obviously. Was we're going to use this old, antiquated, whatever this is, this thing called paper, just because these little human beings use this thing called paper. Maybe, I don't know, but that's what kind of throws me off a little bit. Why would it have paper on it?
It does, and what were these hieroglyphs? What were they written with? Like a stubby pencil that's been sharpened too much, or And another thing I wonder, when you were reading that, was the fact that they said there is papers that portrayed his travels.
Right.
But how would they know it was about his travels when it was written in hieroglyphic form?
Well, I don't think it specifically said that they knew it was about his travels, but they were just kind of maybe intimating that it was, or hinting that that's what they were. That's how they interpreted them, I suppose.
Okay.
That's how I read it.
Sure.
But again, the paper. The only thing that's bringing me back to it as being legit, if we're going to talk about this being legit occurrence, and we're going to talk about it being accepted fact that there was a being discovered and there was paper or paper-like substances discovered with it, my only way of comfortably accepting this is that they were using this as a form of communication, or intending to use it as a form of a communication with us, because that's how we communicated at that time.
So before they crashed, there was intent to have contact with us?
Maybe. That's perhaps.
Perhaps.
And who knows? I mean, like they said, I mean, I don't care how far advanced you are in technology, things are going to go wrong. Perhaps this craft literally was struggling. It did not intend to crash into said windmill.
Sure.
I don't. It gets bizarre, Mike. It gets even more bizarre. The idea of these, the residents of this town, upon discovery of this crash, like we said, Mike, gave the creature being a Christian burial. And do you remember off the top of your head what affectionate nickname they gave this being?
I think it was Monty.
Close. No, it is Ned.
Ned
is what they decided to call
Old Ned.
Old Ned.
Old Ned, the
dead,
the green dead guy.
Right. I mean, it's
old. They wrote a poem and they put it on his headstone.
Sure.
Old Ned,
Old
he's
Ned.
dead. He's dead.
Mike.
And his eyes were red.
Okay, I got it. Okay.
And that's what I said.
Yep. And I'm going to stop you before you say "tooken" or "botten" anymore in this first opening segment here, Mike.
Okay.
We have a lot more to dive into here. Briefly, let's take a quick time traveling excursion, Mike. Let's fire away when we come back. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
All right, hold on, boys and girls. We shall be right back. And we are back after yet another successful time traveling excursion. Okay, Mike, getting back to the topic at hand, I would like to point out that those Christian rites, that Christian burial, was performed by a traveling pastor.
Right, that's right.
Named William Russell Tabor. And it's interesting because the Aurora Cemetery contains a Texas Historical Commission marker mentioning this incident. And if you're wondering what Texas Historical Commission is all about, it's an agency dedicated to historic preservation within the state of Texas. And so this was something that was, well, obviously preserved and documented for prosperity for whatever reasons. That's what some of the controversy is all about, is exactly why was this made such a big deal. And as Mike mentioned, some of the crash debris buried with the alleged body, some of it thrown down the well. And what adds to the mystery is the story of Mr. Brawley Oates. I love that name, by the way. Sounds like an old 1950s actor. I'm Brawley Oates.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Brawley Oates had purchased Judge Proctor's property around 1937. And as Mike said, when Oates was cleaning out the debris from the well in order to use it as a water source, as Mike mentioned again, he developed an extremely severe case of arthritis, which he basically blamed on the contaminated water. As a result, Oates sealed up the well with a concrete slab and placed an outbuilding atop the slab. According to the writing on said slab, this was done in 1945. Now, this is where we get into the potential idea for this being all an elaborate hoax. Should we just dive into it before I ask you if you think it's a hoax, Mike? Or do you want to throw out your opinion right now and then dive into the hoax talk?
Well, there was a program that I can't remember what it was on, but they had, I think it might have been Ancient Aliens, not Ancient Aliens, UFO Hunters.
Yes, it was featured with former guest on Nonsense Cast Radio, Aaron Ryder. Yes, absolutely.
That's right. But they had gone to where this outbuilding was, where the slab over the well was, and they actually had gotten permission to take the slab off. And I think they removed the building from on top of it. Even it was just a small building, and they took the slab off, and there was a very old well beneath that, and there was actually somebody that was lowered down into the well. And the worst thing that they found in there was snakes, like rattlesnakes.
That's still terrifying.
Yeah. But they didn't find any debris.
Did they not? Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Was the water, did it not have like high contents of aluminum in it? And that was basically it?
Right. I believe it did.
It wasn't anything too extraordinarily out of place or anything.
Right.
Mike, correct me again if I'm wrong. Did the UFO Hunters program, the UFO Hunters crew, were they not allowed to do like a, what is it called? They're able to do like thermal imaging, not thermal imaging. They took, why am I drawing a blank, Mike? They read the ground essentially, and they supposedly discovered like an unmarked grave that was too decimated to really truly identify anything from said grave. They were able, it was almost like they had a giant metal detector going.
Right. Yeah. It was, ground penetrating.
There you go.
Radar.
It was ground penetrating radar. Okay. I was thinking radar for some reason. That didn't sound right to me. But yeah,
it's good for like, getting deeper readings and larger.
Sure. And I thought that they
cover larger areas.
I thought that they supposedly perhaps maybe uncovered like a very large object of some sort. I might be wrong. We'll have to clarify that before we're done.
Well, the mark or the at first, I don't know, at one time when it was being investigated, there was a marker on the grave that was supposedly was the alien grave, and it had like a carving of a UFO type,
yes,
a depiction of it,
yes,
and something else was written on there, and they wanted whoever was investigating at that time, they wanted to get permission to dig it up and see if they could find out what was in there. Of course, it was denied. And after that incident, the headstone or the marker was removed, and there was like a 3-inch pipe that was driven down into where this grave was for whatever reason, I don't know, and that's all that was there. And over the years, it had been, the location has been, they can't find it, they don't know where it is, and I think that's when they went with the ground penetrating radar and found what they thought might have been the grave, but still no permission to dig it up or anything like that.
No permission to excavate, obviously. So,
right.
Yeah, and
no permission to excrement or anything like that.
Nothing like that. Not in public for sure.
You cannot excrement this.
No, please
site.
do not. Please do not. Please be polite and respectful, alien or not. Is it not said that the alleged body, was dug up and moved to a different locale to prevent people from digging it up and basically,
I believe so, yeah,
desecrating and destroying the cemetery? I mean, that's what is alleged. And I think right now, to this day, it's still a hotbed for tourists flying through there, which is part of the hoax that we might be, part of the reasoning behind an alleged hoax here that we'll get into in a second. But there's a large stone there next to a crucifix that supposedly marks the original burial spot of the body, whatever body it was. Mike, I found, instead of going on and reading some things here, I want to share an audio clip that I had found when doing a little prep for the show. And I mentioned this before we started recording. It's about a 5-minute clip. It's from an old show called Real People. And you said you remember that show.
Oh, absolutely. I used to watch it all the time.
Now, what was Real People all about? Briefly, what was that all about? Was it about odd stories, essentially?
Well, human interest stories, I think, and things like that. It didn't have to be anything odd or paranormal. It was just a little bit of everything, I believe.
And this was, it looked and sounded to me like it was late 70s or so when that was recorded. Is that correct? Or maybe 80s? Early 80s?
Well, probably when you were still pooping your diaper, it was on.
When I was excrementing in my diaper?
Yes, you were excrementing your diapers.
Thank you.
You were digging in your diapers.
Oh, yeah. And then my mother would excavate the diapers. Yeah.
Patrick,
gross.
Just
don't even
I won't go any further.
Don't even say anything. Just stop right now. If you don't mind, Mike, I'd like to play that clip for you. It's pretty interesting. I think it is from like 1980 or 81. I'll maybe pause it every now and then and talk about what we've been listening to. Well, without any further ado, I shall just play it. Okay, sound like a plan? All right, and Mike, please notify me immediately if you cannot hear it properly. Okay.
Okay.
So
got it.
I am pressing play.
When it comes to finding a job
we don't want to hear
that
this
meets
guy.
your expectations-
That's a commercial. Did you hear the commercial? Let's see here. Now I'm sorry. We have to waste a couple seconds here. La 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 la. And now here is said
Wes
show.
Fraser can deliver. You can build your
Last
career
second of the
and create
commercial.
life
Sorry
you
about
want
that, boys and
right
girls. We're professionals here. Here we go. Real people.
If you're gonna break down, you're gonna break down in the middle of nowhere. You know, I'm not the only stranger this ever happened to. One day long ago, another stranger broke down here. It was April 19th, 1897.
Okay, Mike, can you hear that? Mike?
I can.
Okay, perfect.
The only difference is he never lived to tell about it. A local news reporter gave the story to the Dallas Morning News, and it's been in and out of print ever since. Jim Mars of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram.
Well, the newspaper clipping simply said that a cigar-shaped object, brightly illuminated, floated overhead in the early morning hours and crashed on the hillside. And then in the story it said the pilot of the craft, which was not of this earth, was given a Christian burial in Aurora Cemetery.
But one resident of Aurora since 1920, Miss Etta Pegas, considered an expert on the town's history, disagrees.
I never heard of the spaceman. I moved to Aurora in 1920, and not one word did anybody ever mention about it.
However, an eyewitness, 86-year-old Charlie Stevens, claims when he was 7 in 1897, He saw the crash.
Now this is the part I was mentioning earlier, Mike. I'm going to have to.
I never heard about the crash, and I've never seen nothing about that crash. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, that was a good impersonation. This is Charlie Stevens here, and in a short while you'll hear him talking, and I will have to probably. Well, I'm just going to tell you what he says because there are subtitles here because he's kind of difficult to understand. He's 86 at this point, and he's apparently in ill health. But he claims that he saw this actually happen when he was 7 years old back in 1897. And so he did not want to appear on camera for real people, but he did agree to take some questions and have audio recorded. So there's a setup there. So here we go.
We don't want to trouble you too much about this because we know you're not feeling too well. Because of the years of harassment, he refused to appear on camera, but he did agree to talk to us. Think you could tell me what you remember about the night that the light went over the house?
There's been more paper, more talk.
He says there's been more papers, more talk about that.
About that, but I seen it with my own eyes. It fell.
He says I seen it with my own eyes. It fell.
So we went up there and seen the spot where it burned.
We went right up there and seen the spot where it burned.
Some people think it's a hoax.
But it fell.
And he goes, well, it fell. To me, I mean, this man does, Mike, he's elderly. He's not feeling well. Why would he still be lying about this at this point?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm going by, I think you and I both have kind of gut instincts when it comes to, calling out BS when we see it. Some people listening to us right now might be laughing their asses off when they hear me say that. But in all sincerity, what does that gentleman have to gain right now? He's not even appearing on their television program. And he's saying, I'm telling you, I saw it. I saw this. I saw it fall. We went up there. We saw the spot where it was burning. I mean, that's obviously, no pun intended, burned into his memory.
Yeah.
Why would he lie? Do you have a reason why he would lie still?
No, I can't imagine any reason.
Okay. Well, continuing here.
It fell. It wouldn't be until the late 60s that the International UFO Bureau would uncover the story. Hayden Hughes, director of IUFOB.
This is one of the controversial aspects of the incident. Were the news accounts at the time genuine?
Tell me the truth. What do you think? Is there anything here?
In 1973, when I came here first, there was at least a partial headstone here. I'll show you what I saw.
And he's sketching on the ground in the dirt
here.
here.
Tombstone, which went something like this. And on this was a very curious mark that went something like this. This was just a rock that had been hand hewed, and this had been chipped out of it with some kind of chisel or something. But as you can see, it's just a curious little object. But I think we could see if there was the other half was on here, we'd have what appeared to be a tombstone. And
now, Mike and listeners, because Mike cannot see this right now, this gentleman, he was the current Historical Preservation Society gentleman, I believe, who's drawing this in the ground, literally drawing this with a stick in the ground right now. If you're familiar with the movie Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, I think you are, Mike.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Like when Indy finds the busted part of the knight's shield, and, and he takes he takes the paper, the crayon, whatever, and he copies it and he does the inscription. Well, that's kind of what this gentleman is suggesting. He says when he first saw the tombstone, there was half of it. There was half of a tombstone with half of a marker on it. But if you duplicated that half and you kind of just flipped it over and doubled it, it would take the shape of, like you said, kind of a saucer with the inscription on it that was chiseled out would take the shape of a flying saucer. That's what he's basically suggesting there. I just wanted to make that kind of clear. Hope that helps a little bit. So continuing.
And if you brought this mark to this side, you would have something like this, which gives you a definite saucer shape.
What do you think this is?
I think it's just a piece of fiction.
Yeah,
it keeps Wise County on the map. That's all I can say.
Keeping Wise County on the map is the reason Miss Etta and many others believe the spaceman story was written.
Now, this is important. This is the part of where it starts getting into this is all an elaborate hoax started by Mr. S.E. Hayden, who was a cotton farmer. And at this time, Wise County, the city of Aurora, was really, really struggling. People had been leaving the town in droves due to several reasons, and they'll mention them here in this little clip. And it's strongly suggested that this is a elaborate hoax to bring people back to the town to get business rolling again.
From what she told me, the gay 90s had not been kind to the little town of Aurora. They'd lost cotton to the boll weevil, half the business district in a fire, and hundreds of citizens to spotted fever. People left the town in droves. In those days, even a Martian wouldn't be caught dead in Aurora.
The general consensus of opinion is that he wrote this story to bring people back into the community. See, that spotted fever caused a veritable stampede out of the town.
Well, we were not dealing just with one case. All over, people were reporting something, and one of these somethings appears to have crashed.
The crash site today is owned by Mrs. Brawley Oates, who gets calls in the middle of the night and thousands of visitors at her door.
There sure has been a lot of them here. The thing about it, they just pressed me for what's happened here, and if there's anything happened here, I don't know about it, say.
So, your thoughts so far, Mike? I mean, the little short clip is almost over with. We probably could just wrap it up. Well, no, I do want to play one final clip from that before we do wrap it up. But again, I'm repeating myself, but the gal that they're talking to, that Ella Pagus, she's obviously a skeptic, and I correct myself. I stand corrected. She was the one who was the town historian, and she claims that when she moved there back in 1920, she hadn't heard anything about any Texas spaceman, as she said, and she's sticking to the story that it was all an elaborate hoax for to save a dying town. What do you think? Do you think that's
she's a town historian?
Historian, yes, she was. Do you think that that's basically what this was all about, Mike? Simply made up to save the town?
I believe there is some. Well, of course, I like to believe in the paranormal and the great story and everything, but going back that far and having the eyewitnesses, like having this older man that
Charlie
witnessed
Stevens.
it.
Yeah. Yep.
Town historians, I don't always put a lot of faith in, because there is a town historian in the town that I live in, and she does not believe that my house is the oldest house in town.
No
which
kidding.
It is.
No kidding. Well, what's that say about her then? It's like, come on, lady.
She thinks this house across the street is the oldest one, but my house was built here before the town was here. So you're definitely of the ilk where you're like, well, just because you have the title of town historian does not mean that you're right. Doesn't always mean everything. And I'm not putting down town historians.
Well, of course you aren't. I know you aren't. We all know you aren't doing that, Mike.
No. I appreciate the fact that there are town historians that take that
100%
passion to the history and everything. That means a lot. But I think there's something to the story.
Let's wrap this up, this audio clip, and we'll go from there.
My grandkids went out there with a screen off one of my screen doors, and they sifted sand out there, and they found little particles of metal, lead-looking metal, but it wasn't lead.
Another clue.
That was interesting. The owner of at the time of this recording said that her grandsons were out there sifting through the sand, doing whatever, and when they were doing that, they came across lots of particles of metal. And she said it looked like lead, but it wasn't lead. Well, so what could that be? As the host here just said, he's
melted debris.
Melted debris.
You never know.
More questions.
I know one thing: it don't never die down. Just on and on. It's just like a mushroom, and it gets bigger and bigger, and it just goes further and further all over the world.
One man who has tried to keep the story from spreading any further is the sheriff of Aurora. Armed with a shotgun, he spent 24 hours a day guarding the graves in the cemetery from treasure hunters and curiosity seekers. And
That's interesting because he's catching this guy filling up his gas tank here, and he starts asking him questions, and the sheriff basically tells him nothing.
Yeah.
And so that's why you hear. I don't know if this was it definitely wasn't recorded in front of a live audience, but did they have laugh tracks on this show, Mike? Because when I was watching this clip, I heard people giggling in the background.
They very well could have back then.
Okay.
Yeah, most likely.
Okay. But because if you hear that, if our listeners hear that, I just wanted to point that out that I don't know what it's from. I'm not familiar with the program. So
yeah,
because
they had different levels of stories on there and different everything, that they would have used laugh tracks on, and which they used a lot of back then.
Sure, of course they did. Yeah.
Laugh tracks. So,
but I wrote that down though. I wrote this down, Mike, when I first listened to this because I got that vibe right away. I was like, oh God. I wrote down mocking tone.
Right.
I got
and
that.
there was a lot of comedy things on this show too.
Okay. So I'm not necessarily suggesting that this clip itself was totally mocking this mystery, but you can hear if this is a legit crowd reaction of some sort, pre-recorded or not. That just kind of tells you how, the mindset of most people where they just giggle and they mock and they're like, going, oh my gosh, these buffoons, they actually think there's something to this.
And I think they actually, for that show, they had they had a lot of different people that were hosting that show.
Okay.
And they would have different people for different storylines. But I think this one was Bill Rafferty that did this one. Sarah Purcell, ever heard of her?
No.
She was on there. Skip Stevenson.
This one says,
Skip Stevenson.
This one says George Schlatter. Is that any host? I'm not sure who that is.
No. John Barber. Byron Allen. Have you heard of him?
Oh, I know Byron Allen. Yeah.
Yeah. Bill Rafferty. Young Peter Billingsley. He was.
Oh, no kidding.
One of the people on there. Mark Russell.
Interesting.
And last but not least, in by any means, Fred Willard was one of the hosts on the show.
R.I.P. Fred Willard, one of my favorites. I love that man. So this ending this clip here, he's asking the sheriff a couple questions, and the sheriff basically doesn't answer him at all. And then you kind of hear the host make a joke, and then the crowd, you hear laughter. But then we go on because I want you to hear a couple things that Miss Ella Pegas says at the very end.
In return, all he got was an ulcer.
You're the guy.
While I gassed up, we had a few words.
Yeah, you were up here with a shotgun?
Very few.
A lot of the townspeople here believe that there's a UFO up there. A lot of them did, a lot of them didn't.
It fell.
Something fell there.
And here's Charlie again.
It didn't fall. They're telling you a lie.
And he says it fell, and when they're telling you it didn't fall, they're telling you a lie. And now we're talking to Ella Pegas here.
What do you think? Do you think they should get down there and dig it up and settle it once and for all?
No.
If we can...
Very interesting. Just that short little reply by her, because he asked, can we dig it up and settle it all? And she's the skeptic. She's a town historian, and she says no. Why not? She's willing to perpetuate this hoax that she thinks it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's how I'm...
Well, because Aurora, Texas has become another Roswell, New Mexico.
Yeah. So she's going... She's... I don't want to say a hypocrite, but she's trying to have it both ways. She's like, this is bullshit, but I still want us to pretend that it isn't bullshit so we can keep, the tourists coming in, basically.
Right. And yeah, they have festivals now and everything. And just like I said, it's another Roswell.
See, that rubs me the wrong way, Mike. And I don't want to go on very long about that, but talk about insincerity and just you're so adamant about what you do not believe, but yet you're willing to make a buck off of it.
Right.
I don't like that. That just rubs me the wrong way. I mean, I guess I don't know Ella Pegas. I'm sure she passed away several years ago. She looks quite elderly here back in 1980, 1970s, whatever it was.
79 to 84, I think, is when the show was on.
God rest her soul. I'm not ripping on her at all, but man, she wanted it both ways for sure. All right. Continuing the clip, and I'll just play the remainder of it, okay?
Sure.
Find the exact grave and get the permission from the Aurora Cemetery Association to actually exhume bodies for evidence, that we could have the evidence of extraterrestrial visitation.
Mr. Nobles, you represent the Aurora Cemetery Association. What's their position in this matter?
They have a very definite objection to anybody going down there with pick and shovel and wanting to dig a hole.
Why?
Well, they're afraid somebody will dig up Grandma.
They are afraid, and I would be too, that there'd be a germ lurking there if they dug up somebody that died with that spotted fever and get the thing started again.
Okay, that part. I wanted to play that just because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
She claims that the reason they don't want to dig people up or exhume it is because too many people fear that the spotted fever germ would still be buried with that body, and it will just start the whole endemic, whatever you want to call it, of spotted fever again. It's beyond ridiculous as a reason. So, but that was her reason.
Well, you know, it just answers they're pulling out of their old ass.
There you said it, man. You said it. So,
here, let me give you this answer. I got an answer for that.
Yeah, exactly. We're still afraid of the spotted fever. I mean, my gosh.
Get the spotted fever out.
If that was literally possible, every time we exhumed anybody, or
Right.
I understand there's always precautions taken. There's the utmost precautions taken. When people are digging up, mummies, exhuming mummies.
Oh my God, that mummy got the typhus.
It's just, I mean,
close that up.
Right.
The mummy got the typhus.
It's just beyond ridiculous to me. So, well, I think we've covered this quite a bit, Mike. We want to make sure we have time for our one last take on Easter Island. So,
right.
What do you think, though? So, overall, what are your thoughts on the Aurora UFO incident / the Texas Spaceman? Legit? Is it possible? Your thoughts?
It's possibly legit. I mean, there's a mystery there, and there's eyewitnesses that swear to it. There's people that, that say that it didn't happen, that, who knows what grounds they go by. I don't know. I would like to believe that something happened, but over that amount of time, things can be, exaggerated, blown out of proportion. I don't know. Who knows? It could have been a rogue bird that was some big bird that fell, and who knows? There's a pelican flying over, and it crashed.
There you go. No, Mike, it adds to the mystery. It was actually the Thunderbird. That's actually what.
Yeah,
it
there
was,
you go.
Right? So,
well, that would make it interesting too.
I guess this one is a tough one for me, and
yeah,
I am definitely open to the idea of it being legit and not of this world. I really am. I do also get the cynical point of view, the skeptical point of view, that it was just all made up just to bring people around, back to town, because the town was dying. People were deserting it by, in mass. They were taken off, and they're trying to keep it alive.
That was because of the typhus.
Would you back? Again, 100. Enough with the typhus. Okay, I get it.
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Would there not be a better story to make up to get people coming back to town? I don't know. I mean, that's.
Oh yeah. I mean, and if this did come from 1898, who would come up with a story of a flying something from another world? Well, I mean, that's kind of a stretch where that, how many people back then would have come up with that idea?
Well, like you said, I'm going to look that up right now.
If something didn't happen.
When was the War of the Worlds written? Because like you said, Mike, that might very well be the answer right there. How they would get the idea. Because I'm familiar with only the radio broadcast. And it says here, My gosh, Mike. The War of the Worlds, science fiction novel by English author H.G. Wells.
Right,
H.G.
Wells.
First serialized in 1897.
There you go.
Coinky dink or not? Interesting.
And you know, at the end of the book, when the aliens, what their downfall was, what saved the Earth.
Is this going to be a joke, or you would be?
No, I'm being honest.
Okay, tell me.
What saved the Earth was when the aliens were not used to any of the bacteria or diseases that were from this planet.
Okay.
So it was even like the common cold that they got, and it destroyed
Wiped them out.
And wiped them out.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And God, it wasn't a cold. It was the typhus. It was the typhus.
Yep.
Something very common.
This was Mike when he found out he had the typhus. So, I mean, we were saying again, why, of all stories to make up to get people to come back to town, to move back, why wouldn't they say, hey, why won't they suggest gold rush? There's gold in them thar hills. Trust us. We've stumbled across literally mountains and mountains. Well, not mountains, but you know what I'm saying here.
Then if people would have came because of that, there damn well better be gold there for them to find. Otherwise, the story just dies.
I get it, but they still would have came there. What?
Yeah, but
people
they
are
would have
coming
left
there
pretty quick when they found out that there was no gold.
But why would they come there, and why would they stay if they're coming to see a alien burial ground? I mean, there's no proof that it's there either. I mean, there's no proof that's an alien. So they'd travel to see the alien burial ground. No proof, then they'd leave.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
I'm open-minded to it. I don't know, Mike. I need to do more research into it. Like you said, I believe there was, as mentioned in that newspaper article, I believe there was other supposed UFO sightings across the country. So maybe this S.E. Hayden was kind of building upon that momentum. Maybe he had just read, H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, and maybe he's like, you know what, let's just do it. Let's go for it. Maybe it is just a big, giant, elaborate hoax. But then again, when town historians think that they're going to re-aggravate spotted fever by digging up bodies over 100 years old, I guess I don't know what I think about that.
Yeah.
But maybe it's possible. I didn't think it was.
It continues.
I'm straddling the fence on this one. I'm straddling the fence.
Yeah. You're straddling the fence, and you better hope it's not barbed wire.
Right. Very much so. Very much so. But we are not going to straddle the fence when it comes to our one last take.
Absolutely.
We have some great stuff lined up for you. Basically, us riffing and having fun about one of the ultimate mysteries and ultimate places of destination. I couldn't imagine being able to visit Easter Island, Mike.
Oh, it'd be fantastic.
But let's take another time traveling excursion. Hold on, boys and girls. We're gonna.
The typhus.
Sorry. There's the title for this episode. It was the typhus. All
yes,
right.
we shall return with some awesome last take
on Easter Island. Hold on, boys and girls. We shall return. And we are back from yet another successful time traveling excursion. That was a pretty long time traveling excursion, Mike. We discussed artwork. It was pretty fun.
We did. One of your most, your most recent work of art.
Absolutely. And I appreciate Mike's opinion because Mike himself is a very talented artist and I needed some feedback. And so in between dimensions, we were talking about some work and we'll see how that turns out. I appreciate and respect Mike's words. Mike, Easter Island, my friend.
Yes.
Talk about something that has been on our radar forever, our proverbial podcast radar forever, and we have never really talked about Easter Island ever before.
Yeah, it's like every once in a while, one of us will bring it up, and then it's just kind of dropped and fades away, and
And again, this is
but
something
it's perfect for it. Yeah.
It is very perfect for one last take. Perfect
Right.
for the Paranormally Zone. And I asked you in the prior segments, how long you've been absolutely passionate about, all things alien related, Mike. To me, this seems like something that may have been first put on your radar via like an In Search Of television show hosted by Leonard Nimoy or something
Sure.
like that.
Yeah, very much so.
Am I kind of correct? Okay. Kind of correct, I guess. But raw off the top of your head, Mike, before we kind of dive into some specifics, the first thing you think of when you think of Easter Island, go. I mean, I'm putting you on the spot. What is your initial thought, reaction?
Well, my honest answer that what first came into my head.
Yes.
Rabbits laying eggs. Lord. No, I swear to God, I'm not joking. That's what first popped into my head.
I got it.
At this very moment, anyway.
Okay.
God, it's crazy.
But
God.
when
Chicks
when it comes
Taylor lilies and
you okay? You ready?
Yes.
Okay. I know that this is something that you are. Well, is it too strong of a word to say you're passionate about it, or is it?
Well, it's a great interest and has been for many, many years. But
there you go.
The thing that comes to mind about it is the mystery of, there was this tribe that lived there for I don't know how long when they first were there, and then all of a sudden they're gone. I mean, it just like all the population just left the island.
According to this, Mike, now I'm pulling out my trusty Ancient Aliens book.
Yes.
As Mike can see it right now. Very pretty.
Which should be autographed by Giorgio Tsoukalos.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes.
Like that.
Who we need to get on the show.
I know. I've reached out to both him and his people. Haven't heard anything back.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, that happens. That's how it goes. You have to do it consistently. Over and over and over, and sometimes it takes years.
Well, you got your little toenail in the doorway of
don't say toenails.
Zach Bagans.
Don't say toenails. Not Zach Bagans.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. You were in touch with one of his one of the people from the Travel Channel.
Oh yeah, well yeah, sure.
And you put that word in, but we have the big toenail.
The big toenail
in the door for Bob Gimlin.
Oh my gosh. And we usually don't do this because I feel like we could possibly be cursing ourselves. Yeah. But Bob Gimlin is literally one of our holy grail guests.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And all I'm going to say, just so we're not cursing it either way, we have, like Mike said, our big gross yellow toe in the toenail. in the door.
Thick yellow toenail. There was little cracks going down.
Yeah.
To the
And I just said like doornail, but I meant our big dirty thumb in the door crack, whatever the hell you want to call it. Possibly to have Mr. Bob Gimlin. Yes, that Bob Gimlin, the man involved in the most famous Bigfoot footage ever recorded, the Patterson Gimlin film.
The Bigfoot with the pendulous breasts.
And Bob he's still doing the circuit. He still goes to Bigfoot conferences, and he's in his 90s.
Yeah.
And my God, I would love to talk. You would love to talk to him, Mike, and it would be a pleasure not only would it be a pleasure for us, an honor for us, but we know the listeners would love that one. So.
Yeah. Even if it was a 15-minute episode.
Oh my God, it'd be
worth it. Yeah.
Okay, Mike, reading from my trusty Ancient Aliens official companion book here. And I'll go through gosh, I can't talk all of a sudden. I'll go through this as fast as I can. Says as such, and I read, Jacob Roggeveen was a Dutch explorer who set out on an expedition in 1721 to find Terra Australis in the South Pacific, but instead found the remote and mysterious Easter Island and its giant, Mike, how do you pronounce it? Moai. That's what I thought as well. I was going to say I won't say what I was going to say. Easter Island and its giant Moai statues. Moai. When the Ragavine arrived on Easter Island, he encountered 2 tribes. One tribe had long red hair. The other had short hair. Now, it was said that the 2 tribes had worked together to build the Moai, but that the short-haired people labored under the commands of the long-haired people. Later, there was a revolt, and the short-haired tribe basically massacred the long-haired tribe. Very few of the long-haired people survived. The disappearance of the long-haired people also meant the loss of evidence as to what really happened in the past on Easter Island and about how the Moai came into being. The side story that did survive tells us that the statues of Easter Island were erected for very specific reasons and that they, quote-unquote, walked into place from the quarry near the volcano where they were cut. Interesting. That's one of the little side notes here that want to make sure that you read that quote correctly, that they walked to their supposed destined
they walked in
location.
Single file singing, oh, Moio, Moio.
Or, and when you said that, I thought of the movie Stripes. There she was, just walking down the street, singing They weren't singing that song. Okay, sorry. No one gets that.
Sorry,
I'm
done.
Mike, you need to record that and make that your new ringtone. Every time your phone rings,
there we go.
All you hear is Moio. Now it says, on occasion, the statues selected their own paths, Mike, choosing where they were going to go instead of letting humans dictate where they were going to go. And it says here that makes for a very interesting story. It's saying that humankind was doing something artistically very beautiful. We go to Easter Island just to see these statues and are in awe of them. But that really isn't what a human endeavor is all about. It's saying there was definitely, what it's suggesting is that there was a divine component to the placement of these statues, Mike. Before we move on, before I bumble through these readings anymore, your thoughts on the possibility that there was a divine intervention going on here with the placement of these statues? The walking, were they floating? Were they flying? Were they moving themselves? Were they living beings themselves? Was it something that God simply did? Was it alien related, Mike? This is one hot take, one last take. You're free to say whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, it is. Boy.
Ooh, I like it when Mike's thinking like that.
Maybe they were living creatures, flesh and blood, and they walked to where they wanted to be. Then they were buried up to their neck like dads on a beach with their kids.
Mike, it's said that there are full bodies of these statues under the sediment, under the soil.
They have been excavated. Some of them have been excavated, and there are bodies, arms, limbs, everything. Underneath the ground.
Do you think that these are guardians of some sort protecting the volcano? Because it seems like they're strategically placed around this volcano.
It's like they could be guarding the entire island and looking out across the sea.
True.
For anybody that's any marauders or anybody that's coming to invade the island. They can see for miles out protecting the island. I don't know.
Now, if that was the case, what is it about this island that makes it so special? What pops into your mind? Is there something divine about the island itself? Is it some sort of communication device between us and interstellar beings? Is the energy there just unique compared to other locales on this planet? I mean, again, Mike, we're riffing.
Could they be like markers for ley lines that
great one
that are all over the planet? They have to be something huge. I mean, besides literally huge. For a tribe on an island, on such a remote island, if they actually are the ones that carve these things, the extreme manpower and labor and time that it would take for each one, and the time it would take to move each one from the quarry where they were cut to the edge of the water. I mean, that's got to be more than just some religious belief that these people are making these or as a tribute to something. There's just too much to it. There's too much extensive work done, from start to finish. What was it that made it so important for these things to be made so big and, quarried from so far away and transferred to where they are?
Mm-hmm.
It just seems too big of a thing for like just one tribe of people to do.
Do you equate this? Do you find this on the same level as like the pyramids of Giza, Mike? Do you find it as far as an architectural achievement, not even architectural, but as sort of, just being able to do it,
Absolutely. I mean, well, think about in Egypt, the Sphinx or the obelisks or the pyramids themselves and all the other huge structures and huge idols that they made and placed, with the thousands and thousands of people that worked on each thing in Egypt. I mean, they had the manpower, they had whatever technology, or that's in question too, of what technology was used to do that. But when you have this small remote island with I don't know how big the groups of people or the tribes that live there were, but with the resources that are on these islands, which wasn't a whole lot, and then they were able to do this with these huge, how many tons each statue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It almost seems like too big of a task for what was there and who was there and the materials that they had to work with.
And as you said, Mike, it's being discovered that these aren't just, carved heads. There are intact bodies connected to these heads under the ground. But the largest of these heads is like, what, 30 feet tall, something like that? I mean, the head itself is gigantic.
Right. And if you think of the proportion of the body that would be underneath the ground.
Yes.
The digging that they would have to do, the erecting of this statue and putting it, into the whatever they had to dig to put it down into. And why did they bury it? Why did they put so much work into the bodies only to bury it in the ground with only the heads sticking out? It's a lot of questions.
There's a lot of questions. I just wanted to make sure that I had the numbers right here, but it has been suggested and is widely believed, that the statues on Easter Island are at least 500 years old, which is very new.
Right.
When you think about it, that's
exactly
very, very, very new.
They're not ancient in any way.
No, the consensus is that they were built sometime between 400 and 1500 AD.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been here. They're recent. They're very recent. It's okay. It's beyond a mystery, but I want to get back to some of these quotes here, Mike.
And in that short of time, relatively speaking,
right?
How did they put so many out, move so many, carve so many, dig the holes for so many in that relatively short amount of time?
Well, the book here suggests that, talking about the heads, we're not just seeing standing heads, but we're also seeing standing heads on top of bodies that are buried under the soil. But it's suggesting here that these bodies aren't representing human beings, but perhaps more precisely representing standing gods. That's interesting. We're also discovering that there are inscriptions on the buried parts of the statues, These inscriptions are of interest because we are beginning to understand that these statues are not mute. Listen to this, Mike. That as well as walk, they could also talk. If only we could read and understand. I'm going to butcher this. Nope, I'm going to do it again. Ron Gorongo. I have no idea if I pronounced that right or not. Ron Gorongo, the native language. The discovery of these inscriptions hopefully will project us once again into trying to understand the language of those native people from Easter Island. Now, the question goes, why did the people of Easter Island erect these statues? The short answer is basically no. And it seems that the native people are unwilling to share this information. But why did they have to go to such extremes, creating hundreds of these statues and placing them at very specific locations? That's $1 million question, Mike. I mean, they're not willing to share the reason behind this. They're not willing to share that. But why go to such extremes to do it? And do it in the first place, but you don't want to talk about why you did it.
Right.
I don't know, man. Onward and upward. Again, I have to read a little bit from this book. It says here, we really are at a loss to explain how all of this worked, in large part because when the European missionaries arrived on Easter Island, they were not interested in recording the legends of the native people. They basically disregarded the locals, quickly converting them to Christianity and destroying all the writings and text. As a result, much, if not all, the information was lost, and so we are therefore left with only fragments of Easter Island's history.
Of course.
By chance that they were sent there, Mike, and that the missionaries were sent there and destroyed all remnants of history. Is that by chance? Was that by reason? What's going on there? Was it something that they had discovered and they feared because they didn't understand it, and so therefore they went and basically pillaged and converted, and
it was
buried it in history.
Of the devil. It was not Christian. It was of the devil, and therefore had to be destroyed to save mankind.
Is it, Mike? Let's just riff back and forth here. Are the Easter Island statues in any relation to Stonehenge? In the idea that some people suggest that it's like that Stonehenge is like a calendar, a communication beacon, a communication device that is supposedly not only on this Earth, but it's also on several other not only on this planet, but also on several other planets out there that has supposedly similar constructions on there. Is Easter Island one of those, Mike? And a very recent one, maybe as early as 500 years ago. What do you think about that?
I don't know. There's just such a difference in design.
Well, yes, of course, but I mean, we have different takes on designs, of any number of things as well, that serve the same purpose.
Right.
So why not, maybe Easter Island and Stonehenge are of the same meaning, but just of a completely different design.
Sure. Yeah, that's very possible.
As again, as the aforementioned Giza pyramids could be the most elaborate design of the same focus, but
sure,
man, Mike, we need to do an episode on the pyramids, maybe.
Oh, absolutely.
My brain's gonna hurt. My brain's gonna hurt after that one, though, I think.
Yeah, we're due for a deep dive into something.
I think so.
That could be it.
Well, one last take is what it is. It is called that because we're going to wrap it up, Mike. We riff and we raff and we banter back and forth. It's all about our opinions. It's all about our thoughts. Wrap it up, Mike. Easter Island, do you think there's something extra special about this place is it connected to otherworldly intelligence, otherworldly technologies? Was it simply manufactured by the human spirit, the human strengths, the human capabilities, and we just don't understand why? And so therefore conspiracy people like us, even though we're not conspiracy people.
Don't even label
exactly
in a joking way that we have anything to do with conspiracy.
Very, very, very true. I'm going to mark that. I'm going to write that down. I'm about like 123 or something, because we'll get harassed for even jokingly saying that. But how an open-minded people like us would be, we think it's possible that it's related to something, out there in the universe, Mike. I mean,
well, just the fact that what they are and that they are there to begin with is an extremely special thing. Just that whatever technology was used to place every one of them, and the short amount of time, relatively speaking, that it took, suggests in my feeble mind that there is something more to it than just cut out of a quarry, shaped and moved into their spots. And I don't know, there's
So do you think, what are your thoughts on it simply being a monument to whatever gods the natives were worshiping on that island?
Well, if there is a point to that, because, I'm sure that they had great reverence to their gods and probably, meant everything to them. And that's what they lived by. Which would have made them take on this project and honoring their gods.
Mm-hmm.
But the immense,
the stature of it is
beyond
beyond
anything like that. I mean, we haven't. I didn't do enough research to find out how big these tribes were and how many people there were to do this labor. Something like that. But it's just too immense to be something like as simple as a tribute. It's too huge.
Well, I'm going to do real quick, Mike, because we do have to wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
How many? What was I'm going to type in the tribe population on Easter Island. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do this very quickly because that's a great question, and I think it needs to be answered to give a better understanding of that. And Mike keeps looking to his right as if there's something very, very cool on his television. But
well, while you were doing that, I was Family Feud.
Oh my! Of course, Family Feud. Mike, it says here that the Dutch named the island Easter Island, but I'm not going to try and pronounce what they named it. It was Paaseiland, Paz Island, quote unquote Easter, not quote unquote, also known as Easter Island. To commemorate the day they arrived in 1770, the Spanish Viceroy of Peru sent an expedition to the island. And they therefore, when they were sent there, they estimated the native population was about 3,000 people. So that was in 1770s or 1770, going back to
It would take a few centuries previous to that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess I didn't answer your question, but I mean, gave you a decent estimate, I suppose, but I don't know. Well, Mike, one hot take. Just say it. Say it. 1 to 10. That's what we do. 1 to 10. 1, it is simply a human man-made creation. 10, otherworldly intervention or otherworldly made. What do you say? What say you?
I will put a number on this of 8.
That's pretty damn high, man.
It is high. It's very high. But there is so much that we haven't covered, which I know we don't have time for. But the downfall of Easter Island, as far as the tribe not being there anymore. They just left. Now it's like a barren island with just a few people on it. But there's so much further that we could go with this, but we did hit the gist of it and the mystery of it, of the statues themselves. So
yep, and that's kind of the meaning of our one last take segment. We just kind of fly through stuff and give you the nuts and bolts of it, and give you
but
our,
we can definitely
opinions.
suggest to people that there's more to this story. So if you find this
100%.
interesting, do some research on it, and there's a lot more to it than what we've covered. That's very interesting.
So Mike, you give it an 8 out of 10. So you're strongly suggesting, and you strongly believe that the Easter Island statues are alien related.
It's just more to it than the human hand.
Yes. Man, this one is tough for me. I'm just going to go with my gut, Mike. I'm saying 10 out of 10. I'm outdoing you on this one.
Wow, that's awesome.
I think that there's too much to it, and like I said,
there's way too much to it.
We love our one last take segment, but a lot of times, we just don't have time to do a deep dive into it the way we'd like to.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to say 10 out of 10, man. It just seems too special, too unique to me to be.
I'm proud of you.
To be a simple human endeavor. It just really does to me.
It is. It's very much so.
Well, cool. I outdid you. I'm kind of blown away by that.
That's pretty cool.
Do you care to change your answer now?
Yeah, 10 out of 10.
Okay. All right, perfect. Well, Mike, this has been a blast, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Hour and a half on the nose right now, so I think this is a perfect time to wrap it up. Before we let you go, if you've lasted this far and you enjoy the podcast, we encourage you, and we would love to see you at our Patreon page. If you love to support things that you love, as little as $1, you can sign up for awesome content. I am posting all of our old interviews with paranormal celebrities on our Patreon page because they are no longer available anywhere else, no longer available on YouTube or any streaming devices that you utilize. You can only find them on Patreon, our Patreon page. And I'm talking about Jason Hawes, Andrea Perrin, Amy Allen, Chip Coffey, Adam Berry, Amy Bruni, Steve Gonzalez, Grant Wilson, all those guys up and down the line, and several more to come. Plus all of our exclusive episodes, our creature features, our ghost hunting videos, our ghost hunting audio clips. So much cool stuff, Mike. Lots of fun stuff. Man, it just keeps growing and growing, and we'd love to see you there. As little as $1 a month. Give us a shot. We'd love to see you. Mike,
give us a shot and let us know.
Let us know
what you think.
What you think and how to improve it, man. Because trust us, we appreciate.
Yeah, we do this for you guys.
We do.
Guys and gals.
We do, and we appreciate the support because it's a passion of ours, and the more the Patreon family grows, the better it's going to be. That's as simple as it goes.
The more the Patreon, the more the listeners, everything.
And you know what? The more patrons,
growth is good.
Growth is good. The more patrons that we get, guess what?
The more money we make.
Shut up, man. That's true. That's true. But the more awesome content we'll be able to get out there, and we're talking shirts and hoodies and mugs and all that good stuff.
I know it was a while ago that we talked about that, but that is still still on the list.
It's still on the list, and we're not joking. We're not being flippant when we say that because, well, it's just not financially feasible right now at this moment. But hey, who cares? Mike, thank you so much, my friend.
Absolutely.
You have a good night. Until next time, what do our listeners need to do?
You just got to remember, it was the typhus. Or no, I mean, peace out.